Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 2/25/2022, and today is the Odin Project vlog day 67. Today we are going to have a decent discussion on forms. I did do a little bit of exercise. There will be some Vscode today, so a little more enjoyable to watch, perhaps. Still lots of discussion about forms, but without further ado, let's get started. So we start out here with forms basics. There's an intro to it. It's just pretty wordy. Like I said in my last video, I did already read through all this, so at this point it's a couple days old in my mind. But between yesterday and today, I read through the first half part of the homework, which, man, it's a lot of reading. And of course, as you'll see, they're all MDN articles, so they read pretty. It's my least favorite thing to read as far as learning, because it's just so dry, so boring. It's okay. It's great if you're looking for something, like I said, reference material. But if from learning from it, man, I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, so we have the form element, and we talk about, excuse me, Tourette's is active. So we have HTTPS requests, or HTTP, excuse me, request. You have a post and a get that you use with with forms at the top, and this is kind of how you declare it. So you have form action, and then this is your path on your server side, and your method will either be in this example, a post or a get. Post is for if you're modifying something on the server end, like on the database. Like if you're modify as in, say you're submitting new user credentials, or you're signing up for a newsletter or something like that, where you're making a change to the database. That's a post. A get, on the other hand, is when you're simply retrieving something, like going to the server to get your credentials that you've already applied for, and you're basically logging in. That would be an example of a get request, I think. Maybe not be a clear-cut example, but that is, so basically, in a nutshell, though, get is when you're just retrieving read-only data from the server, and post is when you're sending data to the server to modify something. So, and they go into form controls, the input element. Here's how you start it out. You have different types. You have text, you have labels. So here's your label for, and this is type text. First name is your label. Your type is text, and ID's first name. ID must match the for in your label, and that's how the browser will render the label correctly for the correct input, and also for screen readers, so screen readers can correctly assign and read the on-screen stuff correctly. So if you don't have an ID in here, the screen reader is probably going to get confused, and I don't think the browser will render what you expect in the input field if you don't have the ID in there that matches the label. So you create your ID for your input name, and then your label for would be is what it sounds like, label for, kind of Englishy, the first name. And it talks about that some more. Placeholder attributes, to talk about that. That's just like putting text on in the box. So like for this text box, it'll say Bob period in there. You've probably seen it before on websites. I don't have an example in front of me, but where the page will come up and it'll ask you, like, hey, enter your email address, and it'll say, like, your email at email.com or something like that. It'll be like light gray, and that's what that's for. And as soon as you click inside the text box, it disappears. And then they got the name attribute. This we already, well, this, no, we didn't go over this. So the ID is for the label and for the browser to understand that these are linked. The name, this is for the database. This is for the backend for the server. So when you submit, if somebody were to submit text on this one, the name would go, the first name would go to the first name variable on the backend. In my mind, we haven't gotten this far, but I'm thinking this is probably a table in a database that it's going to go look for, and you'll have to write code in the backend for it to do that. We haven't went over any of that level of detail yet, but we're just getting started on the front end with forms. And then they give you some examples here. I did probably run these a day ago. I just don't remember. Been kind of a crazy last couple days, but here's the output that comes out. If you ran this, this is the output that comes back. Actually comes back with a lot of stuff. Yes, I did run this now that I remember. But one of the things it comes back with is form. And it's just showing you an example of what it looks like on the back end. So this is actually, when you fill this out, this is what it's sending to the server. So it takes the form of the object and key and value that we learned about previously. So you have this form, and that's, I guess that's your object, and your key is your age, your first name, your last name, and then your value is 33 John and Doe. I don't think it puts it, the form doesn't, the discussion today in the articles don't put it out like that, but that's basically what it looks like. That's how I see it anyway. They don't say it like that anyway. But anyway, moving on. So we have using form controls outside of forms. You have email input. So here's one for email. You have different types of input. You have the email. You can use password. And so like these are different ways to display it. And what it'll do is this password, it'll use asterisks instead of clear text, but so that it obfuscates your password for privacy and security. Just remember though that you have to make sure that you send it over HTTPS in order for that to be fully encrypted. If you send that over HTTP, that's port 80, and it will be unencrypted and clear text for everybody to see. So like a hacker or someone puts a sniffer in between you and your backend, it'll see that in clear text. So you got to protect that. So this doesn't provide that adequate of protection, but if you use HTTPS that combined with this, that will provide the initial front-end protection needed. Email does the same thing. It just it won't let you put in anything other than your name at email.com. It'll give you an error if you don't have that format when you go to try to submit. And then there's another input type of number, and that's just how it sounds. It's just basically an integer. I think you can even do floats if I remember right. You have date. You can do a date input. Excuse me. You got text area. So this is basically a text box, and you can put. We'll go over this as an example. There's text you can put in there, and it's a free range, free floating, if you will. Not exactly. I'm all over the place tonight. It's not free floating, but free range text box. Basically, you can wrap or no wrap it. It'll keep going. And there's not an example on that on the screen right now, but so here's some initial text. You can add rows and columns to it to define a size of the box, and they don't go over the size of that. I think that's in pixels. I would assume so anyway. You have a selection drop down, so you can have like car and then options, Mercedes, Tesla, Volvo, and these are different options for a drop down. Again, all this stuff, there's no real examples to show here of it in play because they do that in all the MDN articles. They go over that, so I'm gonna kind of fly through some of this here, but and they have an option to use op groups, which is basically subgroups to select. So say you have fashion here, and then you have option op group for clothing, t-shirts, sweaters, coats is in its own op group, and you close the tag. And this basically, you'll see when you read in the MDN, you'll see what this looks like. It's really hard to explain it without showing it, and I don't have an example right here to show you. But basically, clothing will be bolded and it'll be indented to the left, and then t-shirt, sweatshirt, sweater, and coats will be indented to the right a little bit on a drop down, and the clothing will also be bolded. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain that in words, but here they're talking about radio buttons. Yep, radio inputs, just different ways of doing that. It's the same input type as your regular inputs. You have your ID, which maps to the label, the name, which is what the backend uses to update or do post or gets on, and the value is something you can add if you want a value to be in there, instead of having, like, you know, the word child go to the backend, you can have a value go to the backend, or have a value be manipulated in JavaScript, basically. I think the value option is, or the value parameter is optional. They don't really talk about it, but anyway, you can have one that's called checked. So like on this example, I think it's, where's it at? Oh, here. So the middle one is checked. If you put that on there, that just means that that's going to be the first one that's checked upon reload. And then this is just another example of checkboxes. Yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. It just goes on and on. And you guys, I know you guys will read it. So field goes over field sets, legend. So it goes on and on. So you get down here, and when you finally get down here, again, it's not hard. I talked about this yesterday's video. It's not hard stuff. It's just wordy, and you got to take time, and you don't want to rush through it, because this is like the meat and potatoes of how you play with your backend and how you manipulate and get data. So you want these forms to be not only easy to use for the user, but they make sense for the backend, they process correctly, and the screen readers can access them correctly, so that if your user experience for people that are blind can, you know, hear and get their information they need, so, and interact with your page. So here's a couple. I didn't get the styling forms. I'll do that tomorrow. So I did get through forms basics. It seems like a couple short ones, but these are actually really long. So the first MDM introduction guides to forms opens up this right here, and I thought this, long story short anyway, I had to figure something out, but this link says read and follow along the introductory guides to forms. They're really just suggesting you look at these first two right here, not the whole thing just yet. So I kind of had to learn that on the fly. So what this does is, I opened up a tab for your first form. This goes through step by step on your creating your first form. I highly suggest don't skip this, even though this stuff will make you go to sleep and make you want to rip your eyes out. In my opinion, don't take it lightly, because I decided that I was going to do, since there wasn't actual exercises in this section, I was going to do these exercises inside here. So they start out with, let's see, which one's the hang tight? Is this the one? Yeah, where's it at? Is this not the one? Oh, no. No, it's the next one, I'm sorry. So this one's just talking about, this is just basic native forms. This is going over basically what we just talked about. It's just in a lot more detail. Again, I'm not going to spend any time on it. It goes over pretty much the same stuff, but just more detail. It is kind of laid out the same. Again, Not they do in this one though. They do give you screenshot examples, which is nice. You can kind of follow along a little easier than on the top page because there's no visual examples since I'm a visual person. So anyway, you close that down. We go to the next one. This is the second link. Actually, I'm sorry. This is the first one. Your first form. Anyway, this is the one that I decided to do in the code editor. So text editor. So I started with it right here where it says where you go any farther, make a local copy. So I quickly learned after I did this one that these go on and on and on. I thought this was going to build, since I was doing them in order, that this would build on it. But as soon as I got to structure web form, it started all over with another example, and it was taking me forever to get through. So I actually stopped. So I did this one all the way through the end. And so I'll show you what that looks like, or how I did it basically. It's step by step. And I highly encourage you guys to do this. At least do this first one in that text editor, and don't copy and paste the code. Take the time to type it in. Like for example, you can download their HTML file right here. But when it asks you to, put some stuff in there, where's the HTML? Yeah, like right here, type the stuff in. Don't copy and paste it because you learn a lot more when you type it. So anyway, the long story short of that is when you get down to the end of the page, it has you go through the elements, putting the elements in there, and you so you start here. You get this boilerplate. It doesn't have any of this unordered list stuff. So you put your unordered list in, and then you do list item, and you do label for name, type, text, ID, name, username, stuff we've already been over. So basically, it has you create 1, 2, 3, or 2 inputs, one for text, one for email, one text area for message, and a button for submit. And that essentially makes a really ugly version of it. I didn't take a screenshot because I forgot. But the end result is this. Except it doesn't look all pretty like this and is jammed all over in the center of the page. We'll go to the CSS. They actually have you do CSS. I'll show you that here in a second. I'm running out of time and I don't want to make this video really long, so I'm kind of talking fast now. But basically, here's your name, email, and then your message in the box. This is .focus, so this brings it, when you click on it, puts it into focus, pushes the blue box and the black line around it, and it's going to error out because there's no backend. So it's trying to go to my-handling-form-page, which is because when you press the submit button, it's a submit button, so it's going to try to do whatever it says to do in the form. So it's going to try to go to my-handling-form-page, which is the backend, which isn't there, and it's going to try to do a post, which means it's going to try to, you're telling it you want it to update data or change data on the database. So doesn't do anything there. And then what makes it look pretty in the middle is all this stuff. And unfortunately, I'm running out of time here, but I put the comments in here, and it all works because I just showed you guys, but and it centers and everything. But I might have some typos in my my comments. But so here's your form. The center's a form on the page. It's all stuff we've been through many times, so no real need to go over it. List style has been a long time. We looked at that, and maybe we haven't. Maybe something I just did on my own, but it's a shorthand for setting list style types, list style position, list style image, padding margin, nothing new. Form li plus li. This is just shorthand for you want the form list and the lists inside, so all the child lists. And all of them are gonna have the margin top of 1 EM. Uniform size and alignment on the label. So this is an inline block. We went over that many moons ago. Basic stuff there with text alignment right. And then you have input comma text area. So this is gonna apply CSS to the input and the text area classes. Or not classes, but tags. I knew I said that wrong. To make sure that all the text fields have the same font settings by default, text areas have a monospace font, and you have font 1EM sans serif, and you have width and a box sizing. We haven't done that in quite a while, but specifies the behavior of the width and height. So that sets that, and then you have your border property. Here's your focus. That's where that blue and the black came from. So this is the black part. So it puts a black box around the focus, which is what you're clicked on. If you remember, we went over that in the previous exercise as well, the calculator, when we had focus on the button click. And then you have the text area. Again, this stuff's nothing crazy. It's nothing out of the ordinary, so it's just really wordy. But I went ahead and saved this as index3.html under my this is kind of like my Scratchpad foundation, my foundations JS, not GitHub, just kind of a place I do this kind of stuff. And at the top, just because I am going to keep it, I put just for a note for myself, MDN working with web forms, intermediate CSS, form basics, and assignments. So I knew where it came from as well. So yeah, I kind of rushed through that last part, but this video is getting longer than I ever imagined it should have been. So if you guys hung out to the end, I appreciate you, and enjoy having you all along for the ride here. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments what you think so far of forms and how you're getting along with this exercise or this reading. It's pretty wordy, but good. So with all that said, until next time, see ya.